It's interesting, that you say that, because the last time I felt something like what we're going through with AI was probably the internet boom, and reflecting on that, the internet boom was nothing close to what we're going
Yeah.
to see with this, because the rate at which this thing can change the way we live,
Mhm.
the way we work.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe talk a little bit about, what do you see for the future of people in IT who in some weird way is, it's not weird way, we're at
Yeah.
sort of ground zero on this, but
Mhm.
how is it going to change the job of a, a middle manager, or a director in software technologies, or an engineer? Like, how does that change for us in the next five years? Like, what should we be doing to stay relevant, in the area of AI, to make sure that, hey, we still can be we still
Yeah.
are employable?
It's one of those things of know your enemy, keep them close. You've got to, sad as it is, I mean, we're building our replacement, and we know this. We're well aware of what we're building, and at some point that will come to a head. It's just a matter of time. The idea there is to have the social policies in place to kind of head that off. As a leader, when you're looking into this, you're going to have to be relevant. You can't write an email now without Copilot checking it for you.
That's right.
It's everywhere. It's
Yeah,
impossible as a
yeah,
leader. So
yeah.
there's a bar of perfection that we're putting on ourselves to expect everything to be perfect when it goes out. It's new in society now. In 3 years, perfect emails will just be the thing. So when you receive one that's human written, it's going to be weird. You're going to be like, what? Why did they? Why is it like that? I suspect it'll be a standardization unlike anything we've seen. We're going to be standardized in these tools, much like everything else we do. So I think as a leader, learning them is the only thing you can't do. Embracing it,
Face it.
it's, you got to lean into the wave. If you run from it, it's not going to change anything. You're just going to simply get under it faster.
Yeah.
It is a rising tide, and those people who are willing to put in the effort and the time to stay on top of it, I think they'll have a place at the table. You're always going to have a place at the table for those willing to put forward enough effort. The thing that's going to change with this is the amount of effort it takes to get to that table.
Mm.
That bar is going to be raised because there will be fewer seats. The one thing right now, yes, AI looks intelligent to the outside world now, but
Yeah,
when you get behind the scenes,
yeah,
it's chaining a bunch of services together. We've had service architectures for years.
yeah,
This is, agentic chaining is just service calls. It's no different than a bunch of API calls. The only difference is your VM is now an LLM. You've got a model behind it that you're talking to three different distilled models with.
yeah,
It's no different than any other computer cluster we're working with now.
yeah.
The only thing is the programming language that is generating the response or the outcome is no longer a human written programming language. It is a trained brain with all of the fickleness of the human brain. So it puts those additional challenges come in there with us. You can hurt its feelings. Things like being polite to AI and having to do that. This
That's
is a new thing
hilarious.
for us. It's insane that it's like that,
Yeah,
but then it makes sense.
yeah,
We modeled it after the human brain. We taught it using the internet.
yeah.
We created this monster the way we did. We gave it not only all of our benefits, we also gave it all of our mistakes. And now we're slowly trying to peel those mistakes out and kind of slice them out like open heart surgery to remove some of the problems.
Yeah.
But we're not able to get them all. They're still going to be there because it's a very complex, system to learn everything.
Yeah. What you said kind of reminded me back to our past conversations where we were arguing about, how, why are we building this thing with a web upload or whatever I was talking about, and I was like, oh, blah, we should use a chatbot or LLM, and so it can be more open-minded, or open-ended, sorry, and I'm learning as I work through this stuff with you, it's like, when you actually peek behind the curtains, it's a Wizard of Oz type of effect here, right? So
Yeah.
you said earlier, it's all the same stuff, just different names, and maybe it's a little bit better, but at the end of the day, you still need engineers who understand how everything works.
Hmm.
The only difference is that the barrier of entry may be a little bit lower because everything's a little more, how to say, automated, I guess, the word I'm looking for.
It is. We work in GCP, so it's kind of all, it's all provided for you. They've given you some guardrails, they've given you some bumpers and some safety nets.
Yeah.
If we were trying to do it all from scratch, it would have been a whole different story. It would have been much more complicated building out. We'd had some MCP protocols in there. It would have been no different than building any other web cluster for web application. It's exactly the same thing. Really, what I've learned from it and looking at it, at the end of the day, it's no different than any other reporting interface. It's a reporting interface. It's no different than Crystal Reports or SAP or Tableau or any of your other reporting engines. You ask a question, it gives you back data. The format of that data is a little different. It's a little more palatable, but it really works no different than any other report. You're just interpreting it a little different, and it's a little more interactive, right?
It's a little more interactive and it has a little more emotions than
yes, it's an interactive reporting engine at the day because you're just asking it questions and trying to make decisions around data most of the time.
Yeah.
It is one of the more useful tools I've ever seen. My own personal productivity has went through the roof. Architecture and design, understanding concepts, right? I can understand concepts in seconds. We were looking at GCP, we're looking at some of the tooling today around it on things I had never looked at. I can ask questions to it and I get an answer back. My problem is I'm assuming that answer is correct. And I'm trusting that answer around, the search technology was correct or whatever we're talking about. I'm not vetting that information. I'm using it as a precursor to get more information, but I'm taking it for granted that it's truthful. What happens when it's not? How do I know it's not? Those are the challenges. I understand it's getting 90% right, but that 10% that's wrong,
yeah,
we'll never know it. It'll gloss right. It's no different than talking to a human.
Yeah, no,
when you talk to another human, we assume they're not BSing us. We assume that they're being truthful.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's kind of like the way I use ChatGPT. I use it when I'm stuck on helping my kids with their homework. There's certain math concepts that are foreign to me now because I'm so out of touch with it.
Yeah.
It's 99.9% right most of the time, but there are things I know they get wrong. Like when I play guitar and I'm trying to look for a particular chord that I'm, like, hey, my finger's here, it gets it 50% of the time, it gets it wrong.
Yeah.
So to your point, it's not perfect, but sure hell's beat, me trying to figure out how to do a derivative or graph a quadratic equation for my kids and just have ChatGPT show them how to do it. I mean, the productivity bits of it is endless. I mean, as well as I do, we used to wake up in the morning and say, check our emails, check our this, check our that, and we do it ourselves. And now I just say, hey, pick your, LLM. Look at all my Slack messages, look at all my emails and everything. Tell me what are the key things I need to focus on.
Yeah.
It bloody works. It works.
Yeah. What's important for today? And it'll do it. It's like a personal a personal assistant for it. Yeah. It's really good for tasks like those things. As we expand in its usage, it's only going to get better. That's the thing. We're working the bugs out. I've watched it. I looked at the Copilot beta probably 3 years ago when it first came out, and I was like, oh man, this is garbage. It's going to be forever before it catches up.
Yeah.
I look at it now and I couldn't have been more wrong. I've missed some predictions. That was one of my biggest predictions. I did not expect it to take off and go as quickly as what it did. It's been interesting to watch people, simple things. It's a symbiotic world. Stack Overflow is dead, right? It's gone. Things I grew up on, traditional sources of information are gone. Google search. People use GPT for everything. Why would you search Google now?
Yeah.
But GPT relies on Google. So there's some symbiotic relationships between the technologies that as a society, I don't think we've realized exist. And by not using some of those tools, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier in some of our previous conversations, you've got this model that was trained on the discussions in Stack Overflow. Those discussions happened over years between people to find the best answers. You don't have that treasure trove of information. How do you make it go forward with the proper information? How do you train it into the future?
Yep.
It's easy to train on the past. We always get hindsight's 50-50. But the minute you don't have that wealth of hindsight, what do you do?
Yep. Yep. That's interesting.